If you spend any time on the internet, you realize that one, some people are spending 5 or 6 figures on their sim racing rigs, and two, people take it very seriously. Now, as a newbie, you probably think, golly gee, I don't think I can get into that because I don't have deep pockets and lots of money. Well, today I'm going to tell you how you can get into sim racing without going broke. Before you even consider buying any simulator gear, you need to figure out whether you're going to play your games on console or PC. Now, this debate is as old as time itself, and some people will tell you fervently one way or the other. The pros of having a console is that they're generally easier to just set up and play. They're a bit cheaper on average, and the fidelity you get, which is the level of realness and feedback from the information flowing from your console to your force feedback device, won't be as good compared to a PC. The pros of having a PC, you get better fidelity. There's more peripherals that you can plug in, you can make it seem more realistic. The graphics are generally a bit better because the graphics cards are getting updated all the time. But if you've been following PCs for a while recently, you'd know that graphics cards are very expensive, which means getting a top of the line PC will cost you a lot more money than just getting an average game console. And when it's just about starting up and playing and getting into the hobby, accessibility is probably better than having the latest graphics card. And roast me if you want, but getting a games console is a fine way to start sim racing, and when you have more money, you can then stump for a PC. Right then, let's actually talk about what you're actually going to steer your sim games with. Now, there's two schools of thought when it comes to sim racing: non-force feedback and force feedback. I want you to take that non-force feedback idea, I want you to scrunch it into a ball, I want you to get rid of it and never look at it again. Because honestly, driving without force feedback when it comes to sim racing just doesn't make any sense. And even if you're playing something like Euro Truck Simulator all the time, in which force feedback probably isn't that necessary, you're just going to have a better time playing with force feedback wheels. When it comes to force feedback wheels, there are two main manufacturers in the budget area that are worth a look in: Logitech and Thrustmaster. Logitech have produced their Driving Force GT wheel for a number of years now, and just generally all around it's a decent wheel. I started on the G920, used it for a couple of years and had a great time. There are some people that are topping leadership boards on these wheels. The build quality is good but not great, and the gearing and the way that the force feedback is delivered is not cheap. And if you've ever used one of these, you know what I mean. But ultimately, still better than a non-force feedback wheel. The next wheel to talk about is the Thrustmaster. The Thrustmaster T150 and TMXs are wheels that you should probably have a look at. Now, these wheels are belt driven, and that means that the force feedback is generally a bit smoother compared to the equivalent Logitech. It's got a little bit more power as well, and it's all around a pretty good wheel. It's a 2-pedal setup, meaning that if you wanted to get a good old shifter and just get your shift on, you're gonna have to buy another set of pedals, which doesn't really make sense when you're thinking about trying to do this on a budget. I'd probably give that one a miss and go straight for the Thrustmaster T300 or TX wheels. Now, these have got excellent build quality. The wheels got a little bit more force feedback power. It's a little bit smoother than both of the previously mentioned wheels, and you'll have a good time using it. It comes with a 3-pedal setup, and that would probably get my choice and my vote. The great thing about the T300 is that you can swap the wheels over, so when money is less of a problem, you get better immersion. Now, ultimately, I think you'll have a great time with Logitech as well. It just depends on your budget. Now, don't buy these wheels brand new. You can find them all for decent prices on your favorite marketplaces. Now you've got your wheel, you've got to figure out somewhere to mount it. Now, the way I see it, there are 3 options here. You can either mount it to a desk, you can stick it on a stand, or you can put it on a proper sim rig. If you have the budget and you have the space, I'd go for a stand or a rig. And my go-to would be the Next Level Racing Wheel Stand 2.0, which is what I most recently had. It's great because there's a cradle that comes out from the bottom, which means you can put your office chair wheels in there so that when you're racing, you don't slide away when you're pushing the brake, for example. Now, the last option really is to build your own rig. Now, the sim racing subreddit is really good because it actually has plans for DIY rigs. People make their own rigs all the time, and some of them are downright horrendous, up to the most amazing stuff that you'll ever see. Give it a go, you never know what you might come up with. And if you do build your own rigs, or you have built your own rig, then please do send me a picture on Instagram, I'd love to see it. Now, for this step, we're going to talk about things that you can add on to make things just that much more immersive on the cheap. Now, the main thing about sim racing is having a good time feeling like you're racing the car. Now, there's multiple ways to do this outside of just the sim rig that are not necessarily that obvious. A lot of people, for example, like lights, RGB lights, and things around the TV just to add a bit of ambience when you're driving. And when it comes to actually feeling the realistic effects, if you haven't got the money for a full motion simulator, go for something called a butt kicker. Essentially, it's a subwoofer that you put in your seat behind you, and it gives you lots of vibrations to get you feeling what the car's doing, make you feel more alive when you're doing the racing. Ultimately, it can seem like you need the latest and greatest kit to have a good time sim racing, but
but that couldn't be further from the truth. You just buy what's within your budget and you have fun. That's the most important thing to do. Now, whether you have a console or PC, a Logitech, a Thrustmaster or a Fanatec, as long as you're enjoying yourself, that's what matters. And the last tip for you is to remember to check on all the used websites because you can get some good gear on there.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider commenting, liking or subscribing to the channel. It really helps. I'm looking forward to bringing you some more sim racing content very soon. Cheers.